Hey everyone, is it fair for ICE to be detaining the much younger girlfriends of old white men?
I voted for Trump. I am saying that they are picking up law-abiding citizens. They're destroying families, jobs.
John Gannon is a 75-year-old businessman and lifelong Republican who supported President Trump in 2024.
I wouldn't do that again, not after this fiasco.
His fiancée, 45-year-old Venezuelan immigrant Yasmin Suarez Reyes, was detained by ICE at George Bush Intercontinental Airport in Houston in late July.
I'm Rich Lowry of National Review. Now, this is a CBS News report on a case involving, as we just heard there, 75-year-old man in Texas whose much younger girlfriend, 30 years younger, was detained at an airport in Houston. So I don't want to mock his distress, which I assume is entirely sincere. Probably going to hear some more of that in the course of this video, nor do I want to cast aspersions on his girlfriend. But I do want to address the question, is this an outrage that justifies national news coverage of this nature? I'm going to demonstrate to you in the course of this video. The answer is absolutely, definitively no, and make the counter case that this actually shows that Tom Homan, who took over overall immigration enforcement for President Trump a while ago, is doing a very good and deft job. First of all, let's hear some more about this case.
8 ICE agents swarmed Jasmine and detained her, didn't tell us why, and rustled her off into a car.
Sounds terrible. Sounds traumatic for everyone involved, but was it just an arbitrary act on the part of DHS? We'll hear some more.
When you saw that unfold, what went through your mind?
Well, I was just in total disbelief.
According to her immigration lawyer, Suarez Reyes came to the U.S. legally in 2023 and later applied for asylum, a case that is still ongoing. But her underlying permission to be in the U.S. has lapsed.
So that's relevant information. Her immigration status had lapsed. She was supposed to leave January 2024, and she didn't. Now, she did file for asylum, but filing for asylum is not, in the immigration context, a get-out-of-jail-free card. It's been a longstanding part of U.S. law that if you are here illegally, you can be apprehended and detained, even if you have some sort of claim pending. It's also very relevant, which CBS report doesn't mention. It says she's originally from Venezuela, what makes it sound like, okay, maybe she does have a legitimate asylum claim. Venezuela's a terrible place, awful dictatorship, but she's a dual citizen of both Venezuela and Spain, and she entered the United States on a Spanish passport, in fact, as part of a visa waiver program. So Spain may not be the greatest country in the world. Trump might be very upset at the Spanish right now, might be a relatively backward country compared to other countries in Western Europe, but it's not a dictatorship. It's not persecuting anyone. So this means almost certainly her asylum claim would fail. Now, she also, according to news reports, has a claim for something called a U visa. If you're a victim of a crime, you get to stay if you're granted this visa. No details about this, but she allegedly was a victim of a crime. And then also she was seeking or planning to marry this Texas guy, John Gannon, and could have gotten a green card that way. So all of this just looks like it's seeking any way to game the system to stay in the United States. And this is certainly not in keeping with the spirit of our laws, and in being here illegally is actually against the black and white letter of our laws. So there's nothing wrong with her being detained, but Gannon has this complaint.
Some people may say this is what mass deportations look like.
They're not going after the hard guys. That's too difficult. It's easier to pick them up at the airport. You know, it's like shooting fish in a barrel.
Suarez Reyes was arrested as part of a recent crackdown by ICE at airports across the country.
ICE is here, help us!
So first of all, he's wrong that ICE isn't going out and arresting dangerous criminals. It is. It's just that's not all that it's doing. And it's certainly true. It takes more resources to arrest a criminal, to knock on someone's door where someone might have a gun, where there's a dangerous gangbanger. But that doesn't mean it's illegitimate to go after all the other people who are in this country illegally as well. And there's a sense in the CBS report, we've also seen across the rest of the news media, that there's something wrong with ICE going after people in airports. It's not. This is a natural location for immigration enforcement, as Andrew Arthur of the Center for Immigration Studies has pointed out. Arthur points out if you go back and look at the September 11th Commission, it discussed airports and immigration enforcement. Here's a quote from Chapter 12 of that report. When people travel internationally, they usually move through defined channels or portals. They may seek to acquire a passport. They may apply for a visa. They stop at ticket counters, gates, and exit controls at airports and seaports. Upon arrival, they pass through inspection points. They may transit to another gate to get on an airline. Each of these checkpoints or portals is a screening, a chance to establish that people are who they say they are and are seeking access for their stated purpose to intercept identifiable suspects and take effective action. Now, obviously, what we're talking about here is not a terrorist. It's not a suspected terrorist. We're not talking about international travel either. Apparently, they're trying to go from Houston to Las Vegas. But the larger point stands that airports are places where naturally people's identities are checked. And apparently what happened here, according to news reports, is the security lines were long, so Gannon and his girlfriend enrolled in Clear, and Clear did its job and identified her. Now, also, another point here, it's not as though this is some sort of mass shakedown at America's airports. Let me go to Arthur on this point too. So for overall context, in the center's estimate, the illegal population hit nearly 16 million by January 2025. Then at the airports, more than 2.7 million travelers passed through TSA checkpoints just on August 6th. On May 21st, the number was nearly 3 million. So a lot of people are going through airports on any given day. On August 3rd, NBC News reported immigration officers were averaging between 20 to 40 arrests per day at the airports. That's up from fewer than 10 in May 2025. In other words, on the high side, ICE officers were arresting about 0.0015% of TSA screened passengers at the nation's airports, an arrest total accounting for 0.0028% of the total unauthorized population. To put this in even more context, there are 5,100 roughly public airports in the United States. Nearly 440 of them have TSA screening. So the odds any given airport will see any ICE arrests on a single day is anywhere between 9% and 0.7%. So this is a very small-scale effort in the scheme of things. That doesn't stop people from exaggerating. Here's Gannon again.
This is like the Gestapo.
Okay, so we should cut Gannon some slack. He's upset. He's going to use exaggerated language. That's fine, but I've done whole videos about this before. ICE is not the Gestapo. The Gestapo was an illegal force that arrested political dissidents and tortured and killed them and all the rest of it. What we're talking about here is a duly constituted law enforcement agency that is enforcing laws that have been on the books for a very long time. Don't like those laws? Fine. Go to Congress and change them. Now, you might not like some of ICE's tactics. You might think they go too far in some ways. You might think they make mistakes. Certainly they do make mistakes. Every law enforcement outfit does, but this is not an illegal activity. It is an activity that involves laws on our books that haven't properly been enforced in a very long time. And that's ultimately the source of stories like this. More yet again from CBS.
Jasmine's good as gold. Love Jasmine. That's it.
We contacted the Department of Homeland Security about this case, but have yet to hear back. Immigrants like Suarez Reyes would typically not have been targeted for deportation and arrest under prior administrations. But the Trump administration has taken the position that anyone whose immigration status has lapsed is fair game for enforcement.
Again, I don't begrudge Gannon his feelings, but the CBS reporter there really gets to the crux of the issue. These are laws that have been on the books for a very long time, but hadn't been enforced by prior administrations. So it felt like that was the norm. It never should have been the norm. People shouldn't have felt as though they could be here illegally and just walk around as if they were citizens of the United States. And now that the Trump administration is actually enforcing the laws, everyone is shocked and appalled by it. So again, if you want to accommodate Gannon's situation, maybe we should go and change the laws and do that. But until we do, it is totally fair game and legitimate to enforce those laws. And by the way, there would have been another way for them to try to work this. I don't know what the immigration laws are in Spain, but he could have tried to go to Spain and marry her there. But of course, everyone wants to be in the United States. Given the druthers, people would rather be in the United States. And this is a reason, by the way, that we have immigration laws, because if we didn't, we'd be flooded by all sorts of people who don't belong here. And that's what happened when, over the course of decades, we weren't enforcing our immigration laws, certainly not as vigorously as we should have done. And by the way, I think this shows that Tom Homan is doing quite a good job, because in July, might be some accounting issues kind of inflating these numbers, but the deportation numbers were the highest they've ever been on record. And if this is the most outrageous and inflammatory story they can get, that just shows he's not doing what the Trump administration did before he came in, which is having these huge confrontations in the streets in Minneapolis that did not play well politically at all. Instead, the immigration enforcement issue, the temperature has been turned down somewhat. At the same time, Homan is still getting the job done, enforcing laws that, yes, I'm sorry, should be enforced. Hey, by the way, comment, like, or subscribe. I promise you won't regret it. I'm Rich Lowry, over and out.